And global affairs analyst Kunle Falowo from Indianapolis and Calvin Dark in Washington, both in the United States, are joining me on the Word Now to look at this development. Good to have you join us, Calvin Dark and Kunle Falowo. Now, let me begin with you, Calvin Dark. Now, this development is also coming on the heels of the death of Ahmaud Arbery, another black man who was killed in some sort of scuffle with a father and a son. When you look at this particular incident, the available evidence of this, what do you see?
Well, I think that the word that it was in the report that led up to this, the word systemic, that is what is extremely scary here. First of all, in the case with George Floyd, it was just so incredibly blatant what happened. And I heard a commentator yesterday say something that really helped me put it in perspective. And what they said is that a lot of times we say, you know, a law enforcement officer acts within a split second, and, you know, maybe they didn't make the best decision in that split second, but that there were 300 seconds where the officers around him could have done something differently. So that is really jarring. Also, this doesn't happen in a vacuum, like you mentioned with the case with Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. And we have the case in New York with the African-American bird watcher, where you had the white woman with her dog call the police and kind of pretend that she's getting ready to be attacked. It underscores for us that not only are these things happening, but had it not been for people being videoed, would anybody have even heard of these cases, or would the people and the victims have been believed? And that's also a scary part.
Absolutely. Kunle Falowo, a lot of people are saying, look, race has nothing to do with this, that perhaps this is just about police brutality. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Right, thanks for having me. Well, you want to call that institutional racism. It's been in America for a long time, and just having those videos come up is really disturbing, and not just for this generation and generations unborn. Those videos are going to be long not forgotten either. People of the minority generally, we are more like a target for police officers, and they seem to be very condescending of especially black people. If you're young and you're poor, you stand a chance to be racially profiled here in America, regardless of what part of the country that you are. And this is some of the systemic racism that we need to change as an individual and at the policy level also. This is very disturbing, and this is not the first time. And hopefully we kind of hope and pray that the right authorities will come up, and I know the FBI is looking into this, and justice should prevail.
Let me stay with you, Kunle. Police brutality is now a leading cause of death for black men and boys in the U.S. Do you think that America is living in denial as to the role that race plays in law enforcement?
This is very obvious. We already know. It's quite very glaring to see that you wouldn't find a Caucasian man being treated that way. We've seen videos of how they treat other races as against, African American people, not just African American people, just black people and people of color generally in America. It's quite disturbing. But until the fundamentals of justice has changed, the criminal system is looked into, there are more African Americans sitting in jail right now than any other race, and we're talking about a minority, and majority of those people are in jail. It's systemic racism, and it's not going to stop now, but we can work our way towards the end, and we need the cooperation and contribution of everybody. I would like to commend the individual that stood right there and practice what's called citizen journalism. And that is one of the greatest power and asset that we have to hold people in authority accountable, because this will serve as an evidence of wrongdoing, and whoever is found wanting should be persecuted.
All right, Calvin Dark, let me come to you. the last words we heard from, when you watched that, if you have seen that video, last words we heard from Eric Garner in 2014 was, "I can't breathe." And those are the last words of George Floyd as well. Do you think that just beyond the last words of a dying man, that these words, "I can't breathe," actually represent the state of affair of the average black man in America, where they can't breathe because of systemic racism, and they can't breathe because of the disparity in livelihood?
Yes, and I'm going to go a step further and say that it is a form of terrorism. If you define terrorism as an act created to not only harm the person, but to sow fear among a particular group. I can say, for example, in my situation a few years ago, I had an incident with the police. It was a situation where I guess they thought it was someone else. I wasn't physically attacked. It was very, very jarring. And I was telling one of my friends yesterday, I remember in the days after it, I wanted to go to the grocery store. It was late at night. And I caught myself saying, why don't you wait until the daytime? You don't really need to be out at night. What's your excuse? And that is when it really hit home for me. Here, I was questioned very aggressively by police, and they had the wrong person, but now I was scared to go about my law-abiding activities. And imagine what that's like for somebody who may not be in my position and understands their rights, or may not have an advocate on their behalf. So I do think that systemic racism and terrorism, as I call it, that I can't breathe, the unfortunate hashtag from those two cases, really describes what African Americans are going through in this country.
Let me come to you, Kunle. The officers have now been fired, but it seems like this is not enough, and people are asking for more. What do you think can be done at this time to ensure that the family of George Floyd gets justice?
Okay, well, I'd also like to mention that this particular incident is still being investigated, like we already said, but we need to see the full event as how it unfolds. We know that they have body cameras on the police officers who were involved, and we need to see all the details, what transpired actually. That is not the full video recording of what happened. So they need to be open with the body cameras and let the people see what exactly transpired. Not only that, I think the family should be compensated for their loss, because that's a human being. There's no amount of money that will be able to bring back that innocent man, because until found guilty in the court of law, is presumed innocent, regardless of what he has done or it hasn't been in court yet, so it's presumed innocent. So having said that, I will also encourage people of the minority, we should stay together and also ensure that when you see somebody down, bring out your camera. That's another way that's your tool, because you can't fight them. They have the guns, they have the power, they have the will, and they could attack or shoot you and hurt you. But if you have your camera and then you put it online, everybody sees what transpires, and justice will prevail. And I hope that the man in question, the officer who actually knelt on his neck, according to reports that I saw this morning, he had issues, before this particular incident. He's been in the force for about 17 years, and he had a couple of run-ins with the law himself. And I believe there's an internal investigation on the particular police officer in question. So the culprits should be persecuted, and the family should be compensated.
That should be the right thing to do. But Calvin, when you look at precedents, for example, Eric Garner, that case is still one of the biggest cases where justice never prevailed. When you also look at Ahmaud Arbery's case, there is now a fourth prosecutor in that case. How optimistic are you that justice will prevail?
I think in the ongoing cases that you just mentioned, I think there is a fairly good chance that justice will prevail. However, that's only because, as my colleague was just saying, you had people that videoed this, people that gave the testimony, And the scary part is that even with that, we still can't say for sure justice is going to take place. What about all of the situations from people that don't have a national and international voice where this is happening, where we won't know to stand up for them and to make sure that there are eyes on the situation to get justice? That is a bigger issue as well. But I do think that this points to the fact that when you put eyes on a situation and you show people what's going on, it increases the chance for justice.
Global Affairs analyst Calvin Dack joining us from Washington, and Kunle Falowo joining us from Indianapolis. Many thanks to the both of you for sharing your perspective with us on this issue.